This is the most arse-achingly boring business I've ever sat through in my life. Is this what you invited me here to watch?
No, this is what you invited yourself here to watch.
Welcome to episode 14 of the Jonathan Creek podcast, where I think many of our listeners can understand how Maddie feels.
Yes, and we can understand how Jonathan feels.
How are things?
Not too bad today, Jerry. How are you?
I'm okay. I think there might be a disagreement between us this week.
Okay, that's good. Keeps things interesting. Bit of conflict.
Uh-huh. You're a Tory, I'm not.
No, that's not true in any way.
Yeah, that's sort of true.
Well, you're not. That's true.
Yeah, you indicated to me, you hinted to me that you weren't entirely impressed with this week's offering.
I did indicate that to you, and I will expand on that as we go through it.
Anything you want to say before we begin?
No.
Short but sweet. Just like my wife, apart from the sweet part. She doesn't listen, okay.
Did you not make her listen in the car?
Sometimes we only get about 30 seconds in.
You'll forget that you've said this.
I know. I'm only joking.
Of course.
Okay, in that case then, will we begin
In the traditional way.
with a summary?
Sure.
Crack on.
In the eyes of Tiresias, a widow's nightmares seem to predict a series of deaths. When two appear to come true, she is left fearing for her own life. Jonathan is naturally sceptical, but his curiosity demands closure, and he digs deeper into the apparent premonitions. When all the information is gathered, however, will he have a rational explanation? Or is this one case that defies logic?
Thank you, Ian. There is certainly, I'll grant you, an awful lot of mumbo-jumbo. I'm not just talking about the dreams of Auntie Audrey in this week's episode.
Yeah, no, it's right from the off.
Yeah. We begin in a bar club situation where Maddie unsuccessfully requests an extra helping of Columbo's favourite chili as Jonathan and her attend I think it's a UNICEF fundraising event.
Yeah, I think she's gone to get food for Jonathan while he gets drinks for them both. That's the initial exchange.
And she's pleased when a handsome fellow guest states that you don't get much, do you?
No, she has to agree.
Yeah, not
she
lately.
Not recently. I don't think he got her joke.
No. But they seem to be getting on, especially after Maddie shows him how to double his portion.
Indeed.
Which appears to make an on-looking Jonathan a little bit jealous.
Yeah, since she's meant to be to get him some dinner, I would imagine it might be quite irritating.
Talking about irritating, I'm not sure if we are now overplaying this whole jealous Willy Won't relationship.
Yeah, if they've taken this number of years and there's not a relationship, how jealous can they really be?
However, just as he is looking on, he has a drink spilled over him by a lady called Heidi Braille, who flirts with him as she tries to give him her card.
Yeah, she's kind of half flirting, half offering to pay for the damage to his outfit, I think. I don't think she says she's trying to give him her number, but I don't think she really is. She's just playing with him.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan is typically poor at determining her true intentions, but I think in this case we can give him that because
she's being a bit vague and contradictory almost.
Yeah. And during the episode, nothing progresses with them.
No, nothing at all. I don't think she's at all interested in him.
Mm.
Perhaps because the second he gets her business card, he starts mocking her job.
Yes, what was that?
She's a location manager or something along those lines. He says she just sits in cars and tries to bribe people into... I can't remember the exact what he says, but yeah, he takes the mickey over.
Mm-hmm. At this point, the cabaret starts. That's the main show of this event, with an Otto Danziger.
Well, that's a familiar name, isn't it?
It is. We've already heard it in Jonathan Creek. I believe it was the lawyer that was referenced in No Trace of Tracy.
I think that's correct.
But we mentioned back then it's possibly a nod to Columbo, where there was a number of Danzigers in that.
Yeah, I think including the killer in Troubled Waters, off the top of my head.
Mr. Vaughan.
Yes.
Now this Otto is a magician, a stage magician, and he has a magical bow. And at this point, I quite like this, we cut to an old lady. So we see him having this large bow placed over his body, and we cut to an old lady who is cleaning out her goldfish bowl.
Yeah, it was a nice little segue.
It was quite a nice way to pop the suspense around this figure who's obviously quite a overly dramatic cheese merchant. It wasn't established why Maddie and Jonathan were at this event. Now, I assumed when the curtain went up and there was a magician on stage, it would be Adam.
Yeah, it was not.
Yeah, so why are they two there?
Who knows? Maybe they were invited for some reason.
Why?
Don't know. Or maybe one of them was invited and the other was... I would imagine Maddie finagles herself an invitation for a reason. But then she doesn't seem to be doing anything other than having a good night.
Yeah.
She's not trying to speak to anybody or...
No. I think that could have been established.
Yeah.
The easy solution was having Adam on stage.
That would have been fine. But they didn't want to pay the actor this episode.
Anyway, we're over at this old lady's house and her name is Audrey. And on her TV, we see the lottery has begun. And we cut back to Otto and his terrible trick.
He's predicting the numbers.
This is an appalling... I don't know how this chancer can get away with this as a trick. Even a child would have been able to explain how he could do this. There's nothing sophisticated whatsoever. So what he's doing is, moments before, they've got a TV screen showing the lottery.
Yeah.
Yep, with a delay. And moments before the balls drop, he reads out the number in turn.
Yeah. So he's obviously, he's told the number.
Just before it, yeah. So any number of ways, and Jonathan explains later on with an earpiece, some sort of signal. Why do you think that's an acceptable level of magicianship to be performing a charity event in front of lots of people?
Well, I suppose the idea is that the people there can't see what the trick is. They don't know how he's getting the information.
No, but I'm saying he would work that out within seconds. It doesn't take any skill. It's the type of trick that you might get in a little book for a kid. Here's how to impress, and you record it or something, and you play it back a little bit later. It's just so obvious it's on a delay.
I was thinking when they went to the old lady's house, it would be a completely different set of numbers on the telly from the ones that he was predicting, but I didn't get that.
Anyway, some of the guests seem rather impressed, which is disgusting.
Well, the woman, Heidi, who's talking to Jonathan, she's particularly impressed.
Yeah, and it becomes obvious why she's quite susceptible to clap traps.
She's a half-wit.
She is a half-wit. Back over to Audrey's house. She, however, is less than impressed with her TV viewing and turns it off to read a book on classic myths and legends.
She does.
So back at the bar.
Getting dizzy now.
Maddie barges in on Jonathan and Heidi. Hi.
Hi Heidi. Yeah, she's not brought Jonathan his dinner.
And promptly gives her a very brief history of Jonathan's life.
Yeah,
and
it's an elevator pitch on Jonathan. He's very single and he can tell you what happens in any trick.
Mm-hmm. And Maddie buggers off.
Yeah. And
Jonathan indeed obliges.
Yeah, he gives an explanation, but Heidi doesn't seem interested in it. She thinks that you should have a more open mind. What if it's not a trick? This drove me nuts. This is obviously written for this purpose. There's documented proof of people who can reach beyond this plane of existence and communicate on other levels we don't understand. No, there's not.
There's not at all.
No.
Nope. Documented, yes, in some sort of pamphlet or...
Yeah, someone wrote it down. Spoke with a ghost.
Jonathan is rightly dismayed at her attitude, but she seems more interested in his windmill that Maddie mentioned during her little pitch.
Yeah, she's quite intrigued by that one, I think.
Mm-hmm. On the dance floor, the timing doesn't work out here for me because we've seen Maddie perfectly sober
seconds ago.
Yeah, and now
she's wasted.
Rehypnol.
Someone has clearly drugged her.
Obviously.
Yeah, it's the only logical explanation looking at the facts.
She gets a kiss from her now less than eager dance partner, so he was quite into her but doesn't seem quite as keen now. Maybe it's because she is acting so abysmally after a sip of shandy.
Yeah, could be. Well, we know why. We find out later.
We do find out later.
Yeah, she kind of dances her way to the toilet.
He makes an exit.
Yes, and Heidi and Jonathan arrange something for the next day.
They can't really hear her. Certainly Jonathan can't really hear what's being agreed because there's so much 90s music playing. Did you recognise some of the hits with Fatboy Slim and who else was it? Take That and...
Oh, I'm far too young for that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's not true.
No. Anyway, they agree on something happening at 7 o'clock the next day.
The next day, yeah. And Jonathan writes down his number for her.
Yep.
Or his address, maybe? We don't see what he's writing down. It just starts with his name, doesn't he?
And she heads off because she's staying with her elderly aunt and wants to be home at a reasonable hour.
Yeah, at which point Maddie stumbles back out the loo and starts dancing with a different guy altogether, which is a bit weird.
Yeah, and Wet Wet Wet's playing at this point.
Yeah, she actually kind of pulls this guy away from a conversation and says, "There you are."
Yeah, Maddie is an irritating drunk,
Mm.
as we can see here.
Yeah. Jonathan, well, is quite chuffed with what he thinks has just been discussed.
Yeah, what does he think has
I
been?
think he thinks he's arranged a date.
Yeah.
He certainly has not.
No. We are now in the taxi and we see an amorous Maddie and her new friend kiss drunkenly.
Yes, this is the second guy, the one she met after she came out the toilet.
Yeah, it looks quite similar. I mean, you
Yeah.
can understand
And
why.
I think it's deliberately shot so you're not 100% certain that it's definitely a different guy.
Years ago, I thought they were twins.
I don't think they're meant to be because Jonathan talks to her on the phone later about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's a bit of fun about how far she's going to go with this guy that night, but they end up arranging a dinner the next day.
Yeah.
We're back at Audrey's house.
And Heidi arrives.
Her niece.
Yes, that's why she's Auntie Audrey. She's a bit spooked when Heidi comes in the door.
Yes, not just because she wasn't sure who it was, but she had been having a horrible dream.
Auntie Audrey, what is it?
Oh, no. It was just this dream. I'm not usually one for nightmares, but it was so vivid. A man was being murdered. An elderly man, French he seemed to be, or a foreigner of some description. Someone had broken in through the window, and someone with a gun, and locked the door. And a man was about to be killed, and he was pleading for his life. And he just kept saying, "Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear."
Oh dear.
Oh, yeah. Heidi's got calls to make though, so she sends her auntie off to bed.
Yep, beat it.
Yeah,
Grow up.
that's it. Stop complaining about your dreams.
And from there we go to the mansion from Audrey's dream, and we see Andre Masson.
I thought it was Jack Straw.
He is eating his breakfast with his wife Delia.
It's the woman of the upper hand, isn't it?
It is. And she answers the phone to someone called Craig.
It is an employee of her husband, but from the conversation they have, it's quite apparent they have a personal relationship.
Indeed. He is unsuccessfully, via this call, trying to arrange a postponement for an upcoming meeting.
Yes, he's got something going on in the morning and he thinks he might be late, but he's told no, he must be arriving on time. The meeting is starting sharp at 12.
Over to the windmill. Jonathan is woken from his sleep by what?
Well, there's noises outside and he makes a poor decision.
Yes, he does. What does he do?
He opens his shutters to find out what the noises are without first covering his modesty. Protecting his modesty, perhaps.
And he is met by a cameraman on a crane who detects a wobble.
A little bit.
We all do it at
Of course.
that hour.
Yeah. A little later, he's now dressed and asking Heidi what on earth is going on because she's
Yes.
at his door.
Yeah, so we find out what he actually agreed to the previous evening.
Yeah, she was talking about coming around at 7 and humping their gear around, and he obviously heard something very, well, somewhat different.
Well, he interpreted it differently.
Yes. He says he misheard, but too late now.
Yeah. So he phones up Maddie to tell her, and she is predictably less than sympathetic.
Yeah, she wants to come round and wallow in his misery. While she's on the phone to Jonathan, her doorbell goes.
And it's someone rather wonderful with flowers.
Yes, and they agree to have lobster at dinner that evening.
Like Batman.
If anyone's seen the Lego Batman movie, that'll be particularly funny.
Over to the Masson mansion again. And as Craig and some other colleagues wait outside a room for this meeting, we see Andre inside. Did this annoy you?
a tiny little bit of croissant.
Yes.
I've written the word barbarian on my notes. What's he doing?
He's got a little bit of it. He's using a knife and he's nibbling. My child would eat 12 times as much of that in one go.
Yeah, he cuts off, must be a centimetre long piece of croissant.
And then he pats his lip with a napkin after it.
Yeah, it shouldn't be allowed. Delia arrives to speak to this group of men that are waiting outside the room. And Craig makes it clear to her that he thinks that Andre's playing a power game. He wants to show who's in control. He's told them to arrive promptly at 12 and he's kept them waiting almost half an hour.
But at this point we hear a disturbance from inside the room, and it's eerily similar to Audrey's dream.
Yeah, we hear Andre pleading, "Oh Dieu, oh Dieu, oh Dieu," and a gunshot.
So they run outside to the window.
This reminded me a little bit of House of Monkeys,
Yes.
the path they have to take round the back to get to the window, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. And they find the window has been broken, and inside see a dead and bloodied Andre sitting against the wall with a revolver at his feet.
It's very unfortunate that they didn't run round earlier when they couldn't get through the door and witness the murder.
Yep.
Yeah, it would have ruined the killer's plan, wouldn't it?
Mm.
The gun lying nearby, the body with no sign of any killer.
Back to the windmill. Maddie is now over there and is unimpressed with the lack of action. We heard that at the top of the podcast.
Yeah, I think this is, we've talked about this on all of our other podcasts. They had a go at the acting profession, and I think this one is a go at the TV
The crew.
production.
I think that's a dangerous game to play, having a go at your crew.
Well, yeah, I was reading a bit into this, and David Rennick talks about how he could have done 10 times as much stuff about TV production. Apparently a lot of the crew are played by the actual crew, and he found it very hard to do their jobs naturally.
Yeah, there's one scene later on where someone sticks their head through the window and says something, and it came across as one of the crew being asked to read a line.
They're all sitting around because the scaffolding's not been signed off, so they can't go on it.
Yeah, this is the thing. They are very, and correctly, diligent about getting the proper signatures and the proper documents, but they set up this entire rig on Jonathan's land without a signature from him, without any contract.
Yeah, just his
Drunken.
conversation the night before, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if they had an accident, they could have burned this windmill down,
They could have done.
and there's no contract or anything in place to say that he agreed to it or whatever.
Chancy.
Very chancy. Maddie then takes a call from her new fella.
Yeah.
And-
She's slightly confused, isn't she, as to why he's phoning to confirm a meal that they just discussed an hour or two earlier.
Yes, but she is quite taken with him, but rightly ponders what the catch is.
Yes, too perfect.
Back at Audrey's house, she hears the news report of the Masson death, and she's taken aback at what she hears.
Yeah, a bit like Mother Redcap. This is the sort of news broadcast that would never happen. There's no way the BBC News would put the widow of a murder victim on describing the event. It's just absurd.
It's nonsense.
But anyway, it's so close to what she dreamt that she drops her vase.
And we're back at the windmill, where Heidi receives a call from Audrey, and as she, Jonathan and Maddie eat lunch, she goes on to tell him about the strange predictive dream that her aunt had.
Well, she asks Jonathan what his position on the predictive power of dreams is, and I can imagine he's got a profane response, if he's being honest. Andre Masson gets brought up, and it's mentioned that he's been in the news regarding business irregularities with offshore investments. What does that mean?
Financial jiggery pokery.
It seems that they just thought they'd thrown something generic, but interestingly, as you go through the episode, this is mentioned 3 times, and each time you get a bit more information about what he's been accused of. Auntie Audrey, anyway, has foreseen every detail of this death.
Yeah, and Heidi returns home to her. She's flustered and confused because she has had a second premonition in a dream, and this time she's taken it down.
Yeah, it's a bit more confused this time, but someone was being killed and there was a creature with wings and the initials RP. Heidi looks a bit dubious or confused, but I got the impression watching the episode this is actually the only facial expression she can do.
Who, Heidi?
Yeah. She's, throughout the episode, she looks a bit dubious and confused, no
Yeah.
matter what's going on.
Over in Maddie's place, before settling down to a romantic dinner with her new man,
It's a very unromantic moment as he has to
Yeah.
put his hand into the toilet.
He does, yeah, because it's been blocked by who knows what.
Yeah, and we hear the toilet flush, but we don't hear him wash his hands.
Nope, he just comes out drying it.
No.
In fairness, the cistern actually, I think, is clean
It's
water.
clean water,
but
yeah.
still,
He shouldn't.
no.
The doorbell goes as the couple kiss.
She opens it to whom?
The guy she spoke to on the phone, who is a completely different man.
Well, not completely different. They're quite
They're
similar.
both white men with dark hair.
Yeah.
They all look the same to her.
I think it's the one that she threw out the taxi the
Yes.
evening before.
The one yet she met when she came out the toilet.
Yeah. All three stare at each other as she has to admit things seem to have went slightly awry.
It's a good line, isn't it? In that
Yeah.
scenario, what can you do?
I would have thought Maddie might have been up for a more open relationship.
The men might not be.
They might not be, no?
And even if she was up for it, it might not be something she could improvise being ready for in the moment when she's not expecting it.
True. Back over at the windmill. On the phone, it is now Jonathan's turn to gloat over the shambles that Maddie has found herself in this time, and as we discover what happened, what do we see?
Well, it appears to be a body plummeting and screaming past Jonathan's window.
This is part of the plot.
Yes, their period drama involves a suicide.
Yeah. Maddie just wants to put it all behind her and asks Jonathan if he is up for a visit to Auntie Audrey's.
Yeah, I think he's quite dubious about the whole thing. Oh, of course he's quite dubious about the whole thing, but he expresses that rather too loudly and is told to shut up by the director.
Yes. And Maddie pushes his buttons again by hinting that maybe it's too baffling for him, and that obviously.
Yeah.
From there we have a quick scene at a large house.
Yes, the Phillips home,
It is.
as we come to learn. There's a postman there talking to a worried-looking lady who drives off in a Jag.
Along a country road.
And as a tractor approaches the road, we get a point-of-view shot from her windscreen.
It's all very casualty.
Yes. You expect her to come up with a compound fracture or something, but no, she glances down at the passenger seat, but there's her plane ticket and a passport. And as she looks up, she's too late to avoid the tractor completely and swerves off the road, killing herself.
And as the camera pans away from her dead body, we see that her private registration plate has the initials RP on it.
Some people might say that she deserved what she got for having a personalised number plate in the first place.
Many people might say that.
Yeah, reasonable people would say that. Over at Audrey's house, Maddie's there, wanting to know whether Audrey could have heard of Masson, because he's been involved in the news recently. There's money going missing in his company, so we get a bit more information this time.
Sure. Jonathan is looking around and then shows off his knowledge of Greek history.
Yeah, Audrey's not impressed by Maddie's suggestion because she had too many specific details, but she was reading Tiresias, the name and the title of this episode, on the Saturday, and when she asks, what does she ask? It's mentioned who Tiresias is, and Jonathan goes into an explanation.
Yeah, I don't like Auntie Audrey.
No, neither do I. She's a bit weird.
She...
Grumpy.
Yeah, well, there are a couple of things she says later that we can have a go at, but even this, I think she had a bit of a superiority complex and looked down upon Jonathan, did not assume that he would have any knowledge of such matters. I mean, she's only reading these books on it. It's not as if she's a scholar.
Yeah. And when he correctly identifies Tiresias, she says, no, it's my goldfish who's named after the soothsayer from Thebes. Heidi starts rabbiting about predestination and everyone ignores her. And she's a bit annoyed about that, I think, because Jonathan starts talking about where the fish food comes from.
Yes, he spotted something that might become important later on.
Who knows?
At this point, the phone rings for Auntie Audrey. Who is it?
It's the postman,
Gordon.
Pat.
She apparently had been telling him about her dreams, and he was informing her of the car crash.
Yeah, I quite like the fact that they refer to the victim as Becky Phillips without explaining to the viewer why her initials are RP.
Yeah.
It's not always been the case in this show. Sometimes it does explain it a bit too much, but that was quite good. Becky Phillips, the woman that we saw in the Jag, has died, and Audrey's convinced this is her dream coming true.
Yeah, this next bit was a bit clumsy. Audrey takes the piece of paper which she had noted her dream down on the previous day, and she mentions that the initials were the same as the registration plate, And the winged creature was a reference to the Jaguar car, because the Jaguar's a creature and a car has wings.
No. Shut up, Audrey.
Bugger off, Audrey.
We're not having this.
No, get to your bed.
I mean, surely someone should say, no, Audrey, that's not, there's no way that's what your dream meant.
Yeah, you're twisting it. Numerologist here. 3 and 4 is the same as 7 and 3 times 7. Oh, get on with it.
Before anyone can pull the rug out from under her, she is now quite concerned looking, because she's predicting her own death.
I believe this is happening.
Now, Mrs. Pangwitch, you've got to try not to let it upset you.
Oh, yes. It wouldn't upset you, I suppose, to know you've foreseen your own death. Last night, the moment I woke up, I wrote it down. This time, a man coming up the stairs, a man, mark this, with one eye, and he came up to me in my bed with a sword. And then in the dream, there was blood. My blood everywhere.
It was a nightmare. We all have them. It doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Oh, really? Like the last two, you mean? Mr. Creek, I don't know what clever ideas you've come up with in the past. This time, you're out of your depth. You're dealing with forces you can't begin to understand. Now, please go.
So, Auntie Audrey has been having dreams about guys creeping into her bedroom with one-eyed swords, which result in bodily fluid everywhere.
Oh, that's one interpretation, I suppose. You're saying she had a sex dream?
I have no idea, but it's more plausible interpretation than her nonsense. What is it she says here about?
She tells Jonathan he's out of his depth.
Yeah.
And that he's dealing with forces he can't begin to understand. She's such an idiot.
She is. I don't like Audrey or Heidi can hunt themselves.
Yes, they're not a particularly endearing group, are they?
Not a couple of gullible twits. They deserve to have their cash taken from them.
Yes, someone should come along and do some sort of Reiki healing or something.
Yeah.
No, that's not the right word. What's the one that they did with in the Black Canary?
Yeah, same thing. Or conmanship.
Some kind of con.
Bunkum.
Yeah.
Reiki healings. Sorry for into Reiki out there, but
Well, whatever works for you.
yeah.
Just
I'll offer my hand.
don't
over
expect sympathy if your money is extracted as a result.
you. Auntie Audrey.
Outside in the car, Maddie suggests that perhaps Audrey's engineered these deaths.
Yeah. Yes.
And then Jonathan comes out with the most ridiculous thing he said for many, many episodes.
What's that?
It's deeper than that. At the moment, it's deeper than we can possibly see. Shut up, Jonathan.
You're getting pulled into this nonsense as well.
Yeah, that's it. He's just been sucked in with the ridiculous language that everyone's using.
The Masson house, mansion,
I should
castle.
say, Jonathan's sending Maddie to get more information. He's told her that they need to know more. So she's been dispatched to speak or to listen to people.
She's quite entranced when we next see her.
Yeah, did you enjoy the police formation?
Heads down, thumbs up. Heads down, bums up. Yeah, they're doing a search of the grounds. A row of cops with their buttocks thrust.
Yeah, crawling through the grass.
Yeah, Maddie's inside and yeah, she's taking particular interest in this. And did you like the next line?
I'm not sure. I know she asks Mrs. Masson if it's her, but was there something before that?
No, Delia asks her what they're looking at now as Maddie's staring at their arses.
Yes. She, using a tone that would surely be picked up as weird, says, Mrs. Masson? And she's like, talk as if, yeah, she must have known that, etc. She gets a bit of information out of Mrs. Masson.
Yeah, let's be clear here. She's passing herself off as a cop.
Well, she's not stated that she's a cop.
No, that
But it's
doesn't
been
matter.
assumed.
She's passing herself off as a cop.
This happened in No Trace of Tracy as well.
Yeah.
It's the same idea. She's not correcting Mrs. Masson when she assumes that she's a police officer. Maddie quite cleverly lets Delia rant a little bit.
And from that, we find out that a contact lens was found beside the gun, and that her husband had found out about the affair.
Yep, and left diary entries on his computer.
And there also was a rumour that Craig had been threatening to kill.
Yes, also within these diary entries, both the affair and the threats, yes.
Uh-huh.
And Maddie manages to finagle Craig's location out of Delia.
Before hastily retreating when asked to put a stop to the pesky reporters that were hovering around.
Asking questions.
Yeah.
She makes a sharp exit.
Over to the windmill.
Jonathan's on the phone to Maddie.
Yeah.
He's incredulous that this diary's been left without password protection, like it was meant to be found. You can imagine having the file name, private diary, do not open.
She then tells him something else which he claims is even more interesting. We don't hear that, but he then has a eureka moment and tells her to look into the woman in the Jag and find out if Craig has had any recent burglaries.
Yeah, Jonathan's not doing much because the filming's been stopped due to torrential rain, but seems to be fine where Maddie is. We very briefly see Maddie at the Phillips home. We don't hear what she's saying.
No, but she's being invited in by the widower.
Yes. Meanwhile, over at Auntie Audrey's home, we get a point of view shot as someone breaks in and looms over the goldfish. Now, I think this is the shot that is being referred to in the bit of trivia that I read. Apparently it took them an awfully long time to find a goldfish that was prepared to stare at the camera.
No?
They had a number of attempts, and someone suggested just killing one of the goldfish and putting it on a stick, but the team rightly would not agree to that. Alan Davis says that no animals were harmed in Jonathan Creek except for him.
And the gorilla.
Yeah, that's a shame for that gorilla.
We're over at Craig's office now. Outside there is scaffolding and a large scaffold rubbish chute
Yeah.
from the top floor.
We see Madeline being ejected forcibly from the building by a security officer.
Yeah, before she spies the aforementioned scaffolding and works out there's an opportunity to eavesdrop.
Yeah, we see her approach, I think, one of the scaffolding workers.
Now inside, Craig is being interviewed by a couple of cops.
Well, that's fortuitous.
And he is frustrated at having to tell them the same story over again.
Yeah, by this stage, Madeline has climbed the scaffold and is outside the window and listening in.
Now, inside, just be clear here, Craig says he doesn't know how his contact lens got onto the crime scene.
Must have been taken in his burglary.
Yes, which he had reported at the time, and he was actually out of the country when it happened.
Yes, and he was out of the room when the murder took place. And as the police go to pose a further question, the same security guy who ejected Madeline interrupts them.
Yes, he bursts in, finds Maddie eavesdropping, and disposes of her.
Well, I think illegally disposes of her. He assaults her and throws her off the scaffolding physically.
Well, not off this guy.
Down the tube.
Yeah, that could kill you. I mean, at the bottom,
Yeah.
there could be lots of sharp tails
It's
and
not
things
designed
like that.
for humans
Yeah,
to
it's
use.
It's not a crash mat at the bottom.
No, this guy should be in prison. He's
Yeah.
a threat to society. This is what happens when you get a little bit of power.
Yeah,
You take it too far.
indeed.
Maddie's incensed, but alive, so we can be glad about that.
Auntie Audrey is now nervously locking herself in her bedroom for the evening. And she glances at the note that she has taken, which mentions a man coming up the stairs with one eye and a sword and blood everywhere.
It's funny because she's clearly terrified, and Heidi's like, night, cheerio. He's not trying to reassure her at all. If we give her the benefit of the doubt, maybe she spent the last couple of hours talking to her about it.
At the windmill, Maddie is with Jonathan, and they're providing, we see this quite a lot, it's an episode recap before we get to the final scene.
Yeah.
So, what have we got? Senior director was having it off with boss's wife. Director's contact lens was found on carpet.
And flat was burgled while director was out of country.
Yes, how did you manage that one?
In a sec. What about the woman in the car?
The unfortunate Becky Phillips. Her husband was quite helpful, surprisingly. Story there is she was on her way to the airport for a business trip to Antwerp. Apparently she had a serious phobia about flying, which he thinks could have caused a lapse in concentration and may have been why she went off the road.
You know, I really thought I had it this afternoon. But then, theory's all very well, but you've got to back it up with proof.
I mean, a woman's had 3 very strange dreams, 2 of which have already come true. And in a third one, she's stabbed to death by a one-eyed man. I think I'd be scared titless in her shoes.
She's had 3 dreams. Only one of them was strange. The key to this business is spotting which one.
Clue?
How much do you know about Greek mythology?
Well, funnily enough, bugger all. I could never get behind that woman who had sex with the swan. Unlike the swan, of course. Where does that come in?
To make any kind of sense out of this, we have to get inside a very perverse and utterly devious mind.
I'm not sure it's going to help them get inside your mind, Jenny.
I'm not that devious.
1 out of 2 ain't bad.
No, the mind he is referring to is that of Andre Masson. Maddie can't make head nor tail of it, but Jonathan states that the goldfish bowl may be the one thing that he has overlooked before telling her to get her coat.
She's pulled.
At Audrey's house, she's asleep as a strange figure creeps up the stairs and enters her room. What does he do?
He stabs the bed, but she's no longer there. It's just pillows that have been left in her place. And so he walks to the wardrobe, and I think you told me this is a tribute to a famous movie.
Well, the first thing I thought of was Halloween, and we've seen it before in Jonathan Creek. I think there is a nod to Halloween.
Right. He slides this sword between the slats of the wardrobe, and blood gushes out of all the slats.
Yep, before he turns towards the camera and we see a ghastly, one-eyed being. Now, in fairness, I remember watching this the first time. I think I was watching it in my bedroom at night, and it was quite creepy.
Yeah. At least you didn't have a father who would put on a hideous comedy mask and stand at your doorway.
Only a deviant would do such a thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll never live that down. Anyway, of course, this is just a dream, and Audrey wakes with a start just in time for Maddie and Jonathan to appear at her door.
It's a very late night visit. It's after 11, and they've shown up with a theory.
Yes, he believes he can lay her nightmare to rest, so he goes on. It's not hard to fathom why a woman who reads books about mythical creatures before bedtime may dream of such monsters.
There's certainly a level of antipathy between them, though, because Audrey's very unamused when she sees them there, and especially with Madeline holding the fishbowl. And Jonathan just tells her to sit down. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of pleasantry. I don't think they like one another.
No. That's understandable. I have to defend Jonathan here. He is thinking logically and scientifically. She is believing mumbo-jumbo and patronising him.
Yeah, but he's shown up at her house after she's been in bed sleeping and starts ordering around the living room.
Yeah, he's trying to help her.
Yeah, in his mind. Anyway, yes, he states point blank, dreams are not predictive. The one-eyed man, the winged creature, straight out of these books she's been reading.
Yeah, he also tells her that the crash that killed Rebecca Phillips was all Audrey's fault because of her nonsense.
Yeah, she's caused this. Becky probably would have assumed that the creature with wings was her plane. This would have made her so distracted it was inevitable she would drive into a tractor or ditch.
Yeah, did we mention she had apparently a phobia of flying?
Yeah, well, yeah, her husband had told Maddie that. I think we covered that when Maddie told Jonathan.
Did we?
If we didn't, we have now.
I don't really buy this either.
No, it's ridiculous.
So she's a high-flying businesswoman who goes on business trips on planes, you'd assume, a lot.
Yeah, but she's so scared of it she can't drive in a straight line to the airport.
Yeah, nah, don't buy it.
Nah. Her husband called it an accident waiting to happen, which is a fairly phlegmatic point of view for a widower.
Yeah, it was bound to happen.
She was in her 40s now.
Not surprised. Jonathan states that the only mystery is the murder of Andre Masson, and they just have to work out how the details of that got into her dream.
Yes, that's an important point. And the other thing, the other presumption that Jonathan refers to is that the events of the murder must have been premeditated.
Mm-hmm. We discover that Masson was about to be convicted of fraud and had also found out about the affair.
Yes, he'd been creaming off zillions over 10 years into private bank accounts. So now we get the full story of his business affairs that were hinted at earlier on. And yes, he hates Craig Downey, his employee.
So he is going to commit suicide.
Yes, to get away from the fraud, and he's going to frame Downey to put a smile on his face. He can die happy. And he will have done, because he's not to know that it wouldn't work.
Yeah, everyone's a winner.
Yes.
Okay, so what does he do?
He makes a recording of how he imagines this death is going to play out onto a CD.
Yes, which he then hides in Downey's flat when he is away on this business trip we heard about.
And while he's there, he takes the contact lens, which he's going to plant at the murder scene.
And this is when the clever bit apparently happens.
Downey was outside with witnesses when they heard the gun. He's got to be in the clear. Or is he? Not only are the police going to find his contact lens by the body, Masson's also left behind some diary entries about Downey threatening to kill him, probably invented. So sooner or later, they're going to tumble to the idea of a very clever time-shift murder. They search his flat, find the CD, prosecution rests. It's your classic Columbo plot. Downey shot Masson earlier in the day, recorded it, and programmed the computer to play it back at 12:30, giving himself the perfect alibi.
To say that is the most unlikely scenario I have ever heard.
Is exactly the point. No jury alive will believe it's a setup. Downey's had it. And it would have worked. But for one glitch, Masson couldn't possibly have known about.
Your classic Columbo plot.
Tisn't?
No, that never happened in Columbo.
No, it was no chance at all. Is that a classic Columbo plot?
I've watched every Columbo. You've watched them all multiple times. That never happens.
Never at all.
There is an episode where they have pre-recorded conversations that they put down a phone. I think Exercise in Fatality.
Mm-hmm.
But that's about as close as you're getting.
Yeah, this is not a Columbo plot whatsoever. Because I'll tell you why, and it's the problem with this happening in Jonathan Creek. It would have made more sense, perhaps, in Columbo, where if you knew in the Columbo universe that the lead detective was going to be so smart that he'd pick up on the subtleties that you are at the clues and the hints.
Yeah.
But in Jonathan Creek, the whole point of Jonathan Creek is that the cops, apart from Pryke,
don't get this stuff.
They're just general plods.
They're never going to stumble on the idea of a time-shift murder.
Precisely, that's why Jonathan Creek exists. It's because he's better than the cops and he comes in and solves these seemingly impossible crimes that the cops can't. So in this universe, you can't leave subtle clues. You could for Columbo.
Yeah, or you could if you knew Creek would get involved.
Yeah, but
there's no way for him to know that.
So it's a terrible... That's what it said in the clip there. Masson would know that they would eventually stumble on this clever time shift. No, they wouldn't have.
I would imagine, in fact, I'd probably put a little bit of money on this, that the police have never, in any crime of murder in the UK, gone to a suspect's house and played all their CDs.
Well, that's it, isn't it? You're assuming that because he might be a suspect, you'll take every item from it and inspect it. Why would you play the CD?
And why that one CD?
Yeah, garbage.
Yes.
This man, it was a silly, silly plot.
I suppose you would play the CD if you thought, he must have recorded the murder and then done it again.
But just on that, he recorded the murder on this crappy little 1990s computer mic.
Yes.
There's no way that's sounding like a real...
No.
It's going to be all tinny.
Yeah, but he doesn't use it. It's never played back, except to Audrey. It's only meant to have theoretically been played back.
Yeah, but if they did play that back, then they'd say, no,
they would know,
that was never being... That couldn't have worked.
Yeah.
This is obviously a setup.
Yes.
If they're perceptive enough to work out that the time shift, when they heard the recording, they would be perceptive and intelligent enough to realise that didn't happen because this recording could never be confused with the real thing.
Andre's overthought this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in any event, it's not going to work because Craig's been burgled.
He has, and what's happened?
The CD's been stolen, sold at the market and bought by Audrey, who thought it was Frank Sinatra.
She put it in one of these old school CD auto changers.
So
she's playing her Sinatra, falls asleep, and then this recreation of the supposed murder seeps into her old napper as she dozes in her chair.
Can you imagine if she'd left the telly on? It's like, oh my goodness, Heidi, I dreamed I was playing for England.
Well, that's it, isn't it?
England actually played last night.
Or you'll never get it. Did you think doesn't understand these are dreams?
Yeah.
I thought I was a crooner on stage. I was sure I was in LA. Bugger off, Audrey.
It turned out somebody was on stage in LA last night.
Idiot.
The problem they've got with Jonathan's plan is, as Heidi said, it sounds ridiculous unless you can prove it.
Yes, and how are they going to prove it?
They need to find the CD.
Yes, so we get an explanation as to the POV burglar that we saw earlier.
Jonathan very casually admits breaking and entering in the house to go through all her CDs and failing to find this one. And then we get the most ridiculous contrivance. Only one other place it could have been.
Under the goldfish bowl.
Have you ever lost a CD?
Yeah.
And was it in the one obvious place it must be?
No.
No. Some of them never show up. So this was ridiculous.
Indeed.
Yeah. I liked Maddie's line here. Jonathan puts the CD in and she says, of course, if it plays Fly Me to the Moon, we're rather screwed.
Yeah. She did have a lot of nice lines, comedy lines in this episode.
Yeah. Audrey's stunned when it does play the murder, and Heidi continues to look confused.
Yeah. There's no point in trying to explain it to her.
No, I think she's annoyed that it's not something sort of occultish or mysterious.
So we have the epilogue at the windmill this week.
Yeah, Jonathan's been recruited as a body double, and he's doing a scene where he kisses the leading actress, but unfortunately they're now on take 15, much to Maddie's disappointment.
Yeah. So when Gino calls to say sorry for the mess up, I don't know why he's saying sorry.
I don't know if he is saying sorry, really. I think he's being polite.
Okay. She pretends that the two guys are offering her a timeshare.
Yeah, it's not even Gino that phones, Gino's the other one. If you look at who the actors are and who's on the phone.
Who knows?
Yeah. Anyway, she acts like they want to sleep with her in rotation, and she says she's going to think about it.
Although she accepts that she is predictable, and Jonathan doesn't buy it.
Yeah, of course not.
And that's where we end. So, said at the top of the podcast, I thought we might have differing opinions. Certainly that was the indication you gave me earlier.
Yeah.
And I must admit that I'm probably leaning more towards your unfavourable review of this week's episode, although I would say that for me it's fun. There's some nice lines. It's only when you start to look at it critically that the holes and it becomes a bit of a mess.
Yeah, I think if you just let that wash over you, it'd be fun. Or you managed to figure that out. The feeling I got watching it is that they came up with this Mason suicide framing plot first, and then they thought, what can we build around this? The dream thing was stupid for me. It didn't work. They could have come up with something better.
Yeah.
Like, even just that Mason thing on its own, but beefed up a wee bit with a few more details. That would have been a good story. Yeah,
there's definitely weaknesses in the plot and how it was put together. Yeah, I mean, there is an idea in there. There is a decent idea, but the fact is that, unfortunately, the reference to Columbo in this episode...
So you're now so furious.
No, I just mean that if you look at a good Columbo, an early Columbo, that's how this could have been done.
Yeah.
And this, you don't want to compare yourself to top-notch
you
Columbo.
Don't bring it up, no. Maybe they meant the revival.
Yeah, even then, to be fair. So yeah, it's certainly no Columbo plot.
Yeah, there's a lot of frustration in terms of what the characters are saying. But there's some good moments.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it wasn't bad and it wasn't dreadful.
It was better than Norman.
It was better than Norman, and it was better than last week.
Yeah. Mr. Shankfish, or whatever his name was.
Yeah. So there we have it. Any trivia you want to give us just now?
Well, I've given you the goldfish one already, and the one about the TV production parody almost. So I don't think there's really anything much beyond that.
Okay, this was first broadcast on the 4th of December 1999 at the 50-minute mark. And again, Keith Washington was at the helm. Terence Hardiman played Andre Masson, who was born in 1937 and known for Gandhi, Crown Court, Secret Army, Wish Me Luck, Cadfael, The Worst Witch, The Bill, Doctor Who Doctors, Hopi City Wallander, and of course, Jack Straw in The Demon Headmaster.
I'm sure we've talked about this before.
Yeah, I can't remember when.
If it was this podcast or another one that you've heard, tell us when we did it because we can't put our finger on it.
Rebecca Front played Heidi. You recognised her, yeah?
She was in Alan Partridge Show.
She was. Born in 1964, primarily known as a comic actress, has been in The Day Today, Knowing Me, Knowing You, Fist of Fun, Big Train, Time Gentlemen Please, Nighty Night, The Catherine Tate Show and The Thick of It. In more serious roles, she has appeared in Lewis, Humans, War and Peace, and Doctor Who. Auntie Audrey was played by Marjorie Mason. She died in 2014, aged 100.
Was she related to Audrey Mason?
She was. She has been in The Princess Bride, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I think she played the the catering, the tea lady on the train,
Okay.
whatever that's called.
Hogwarts Express.
Yeah. She has been in Pink Floyd The Wall, Casualty, A Question of Guilt, Peak Practice, The Bill, and Z-Cars. Delia was played by Diana Weston, and you mentioned earlier, known for The Upper Hand.
Yes.
Born in 1953, she has also been in Doctors and New Tricks, Casualty, Troubles and Strife, and Agony. She had a daughter with Robert Lindsay during their 15-year relationship.
Was it Joe McGann that was in the...
We've mentioned this
Upper
before,
Hand?
one of the McGanns, there's 12 of them,
Yes, one of them was in Jonathan Craig a wee bit later on.
and one was in Doctor Who.
There you go. It wasn't the Doctor Who one that was in Upper Hand.
When I say he was in Doctor, he was Doctor Who.
Yes.
Or Doctor, who is
The
Doctor?
Doctor.
Yeah, so who is Doctor Who?
That's the question.
Is it a question? But it's not a question mark. I don't get it.
Yeah, he just calls himself the Doctor.
Yeah, so when is Doctor Who ever referenced?
Well, it's been referenced in some recent episodes, but it's almost never said on the show,
Okay.
apart from that traditional knock-knock joke.
Gino was played by Paul Blackthorne, and he was born in 1969. He has starred in Lagan, Arrow, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, The River, White Collar, Lipstick Jungle, Big Shots, Monk, 24, ER, Hobie City, and Peak Practice, amongst lots and lots of other things.
He was quite a major bad guy in 24. Folk will remember him from that. If you think you know his face, it's probably from that.
And James Gadas played Craig Downey. He was born in 1960. He has also starred in Casualty, Emmerdale, Doctors, The Bill, Bad Girls, Casualty at Hobie City, Coronation Street, and Medics. Unfortunately, he ran as a Tory candidate in the 2005 general election.
But fortunately, he lost.
Okay, before we go, episode review.
Okay.
Motive.
Revenge. Rowingy.
Okay, some clues we've got here. The contact lens, the burglary, the CDs, the acknowledgement of financial trouble, finding out about the affair.
The goldfish food receipt.
Yeah. And the gotcha. Well, there wasn't a gotcha because there wasn't.
Dead.
Yeah.
There's a gotcha for Audrey who got what she deserved and proved that her dreams were just dreams.
But yeah, there was no crime as such. There was no murder committed for a gotcha here. So there was no guilty party.
Yeah.
Next time, we have the Omega Man.
Ooh, it's exciting.
The Rolex guys.
The Casio dude.
That's us.
Yes, okay. Well, we'll see folk next time in a couple of weeks.
Goodbye.
Cheerio.